Folks, hello! It is Monday. We are back with some hobby nightmares. Our first one today is from Jensen Botherer, which I really like. A nice hobby channel related name there. Thank you very much. Northern Exile channel related name there. Love it. He says, "Hey North, one from your traumatized manager's pack of goodness this time." Okay, cool. Alright. Thank you very much. "I come to you from the lovely city of Nottingham, which has far more women than men, or so you'd be led to believe." Does it? I've never heard that. Nottingham people, are there more women than men in Nottingham? Or is that not count? I don't know. No. "I worked for Games Workshop for going on 8 years, and in my early years I had one of the worst managers that there has ever been at the company. This is a known thing. He is famous and actually has several different Reddits dedicated just to him." Wow. "One of my co-workers at the time when I was a red shirt was a lovely young lady called Louise. Louise was cute, small, curvy, and painted a really mean model. Me and her got on like an absolute house on fire." Brilliant. Awesome. Let me just turn the page. "Our time together there was filled with laughs, and generally going about the place doing campaigns, painting competitions, and other bits and bobs that the manager, Clive, didn't really help us out with that much. Indeed, he would come in, swan around, and then go back and sit upstairs. He would always make really weird passing comments at Louise, as if he wanted his authority over her to be some sort of turn-on, as it were. Newsflash, it wasn't. I actually really liked Louise and started to develop kind of feelings towards her, but Clive's behaviour made it impossible to approach or try and escalate things further without coming across as just another weirdo." This is it. This is it. Whenever a normal dude sees a guy acting this way around the hot chick, around the hot woman, you do, as a nerd, you think to yourself, I'm disqualified from talking to this woman. Because even if things go well, she's still going to think in the back of her mind, well, I've just let this one in, he's just one of them. You're not different, you're just one of them, right? You're one of these people you're into me because, I'm a girl, I have breasts, and I paint models, you know what I mean? Rather than the actual person in there, but there we go. "I hated this, and it was a real..." How did you spell that? Dichotomy? Dichotomy, I think you meant to say, right? Okay. "It was a real dichotomy down myself, where I didn't know what to say to myself in the mirror at times. I absolutely hated the fact that I couldn't have just approached this woman on my own terms. We even went out for drinks and things like that with the wider friend group, where we'd go to rock clubs, pubs, and all sorts of other things around Nottingham, and we had a really good time together. I just couldn't bring up the courage to actually talk to her on that level, despite many colleagues telling me that they thought she was into me." Okay, alright. "Q1 morning, the most humiliating morning of my life. We did mandatory training on a Saturday. Unpaid. Dude, I'm with you. This happened to me as well. I was told by this is North talking now, I was told by my manager too, I hope this isn't the same guy. I was told by my manager too that I had to, I doubt it was, because he wasn't in Nottingham, to go in on a Saturday early, right? So I had to go in and essentially do training with him on a whiteboard at 8 AM on a Saturday. Yeah, brilliant. Our busiest day of the week, right? Our absolute, we're manic all day, and he has you in at 8 AM, and you don't open till 10. So you've got 2 hours of training that revolves around things like, don't forget to breathe when you're, stuff like that. 2 hours. Where this guy, basically, he stood up, he was full of his own self-importance, he would point to this whiteboard. He once had me come in with a fantasy book that I liked, and I had to read it for him, so he could see my delivery of a story and how it pans out. Like, that's not the skill that you're looking for, dude. The skill you're looking for to do introduction games is to do ad-lib stories, is to make sure that you can see what's developing on the tabletop, and you can go, hey, you know, this Space Marine's going to fight this Space Marine, and you can do that sort of a thing. Reading a fantasy book isn't that. Me reading Hobby Nightmares isn't that. Yeah, hours every single Saturday, unpaid, horrible. And again, people have told me since, oh, you didn't have to do it. You know, you could have told them to go away. No, I couldn't. I'd lost my job. And do you really think they would have cared about some dude who is just, you know, a normal staffer? No, they'd be like, no, obviously you weren't very good at your job. Goodbye, right? My manager at the time had a file of facts of training modules that he would have you do. And these were all nonsense. All typical middle management, let's all sing Kumbaya nonsense, but with models. Horrible. Okay. Let me carry on before I have an aneurysm. Okay. The morning in question, I came in early, as was my wont to do, on a Saturday. Okay, cool. I got in there and I go upstairs and I talk to my manager and we sit down as he generally goes over the 5 most important things you need to be aware of when coming into work at Games Workshop on a busy Saturday. On the storefront, things like, you know, watching out for shoplifters, stuff like that. Again, yeah, how to breathe, yeah. He then goes into the bathroom a couple of minutes later as me and Louise sit there looking at the ceiling and making small talk. I then hear him exclaim, "Ugh," from the bathroom. Okay. He walks out and says, "Jensen, you've absolutely pissed all over the seat, dude. How dare you? This is company property." North, I have to tell you, I was scared of that toilet because only Clive ever seemed to use it, so I'd never been in there before in my life and I'd never used it. And I told him as much. We got into a bit of a shouting match that ended up with me being dismissed from my job that day. Not fired, just sent home for my, and I quote, blatant disrespect, unquote. Jesus, dude. What is this? What is this guy? Oh my god. I'll fast forward a couple of years and I'm still with the company because I managed to get a transfer elsewhere. I've got friends in Nottingham who will actually like me, so they managed to get me the hell out of Dodge. That's good. Me and Louise actually ended up dating for a good couple of years, which is also something I'm very, very, very happy about because it means I for once can give you a happy ending to a hobby nightmare involving Games Workshop. But, okay, turn the page again. But Louise did confide in me that that very day I got sent home, Clive asked for her phone number. It's always, they're always the same. They're always the same. These snaky, snaky blokes, they're always the same. Always. Right? If you need to cut down another bloke to get a chance with a woman, you probably shouldn't be there. Do you know what I mean? It's just weak behaviour, dude. I was raging for a couple of minutes, then actually realised how much of a win this was. This guy had been turned down despite embarrassing me in front of what might have been the love of my life. And now here I was dating her and with a nice cushy job elsewhere in the country. So all ended well in the end. Cheers for all you do. Sincerely, Jensen Botherer. Cheers, man. Cheers, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. You had a happy ending, a lucky escape. I'm sorry you two didn't end up together. That's pretty... Unless you did. You haven't said here. You haven't said whether you did or not. Anyway, moving on. Our next hobby nightmare is from Ralderon, who is obviously a Blood Angels player. Or at least I hope you're a Blood Angels player. He says, "Hello, North. Ralderon here again with my second hobby nightmare. My last submitted nightmare was a story of a person using the clock to have to fight my army for as little time as possible. However, this one is a story of a newer player being taken advantage of by a seemingly friendly opponent fudging enough dice rolls to turn random dice into a scripted event." Okay? "This comes from my earlier days in the hobby and I call this story the law-accurate Primarch. Okay, I'm just going to carry on. I was a younger player just getting their feet underneath them. I would spend my time every weekend playing matches as often as there were tables and opponents to play against. However, this day was rainy, and for some reason this keeps many nerds from going to hobby stores in the United States. I bet you do not have this problem in the UK. Yeah, we don't normally. Or you have your friend who says, "What? You're not made of sugar, dude. It's rain. It's not going to kill you, you know." But you Yanks are spoilt for rain. You don't really. Well, it depends where you are, right? Depends where you are, I guess. Feeling a bit let down, I struck up a conversation with the employee on staff that day who had only been working there a couple of weeks at most. He talked about wanting to create a demon army while he sorted out all the magic cards the store had bought recently. I told him about how I got into the hobby myself. He and I were having a good time, but I didn't want to hold him hostage while I rant about 40k theories and homebrew lore. So, if no one showed up after an hour, I'd head home and paint my new models. No harm, no foul. Our antagonist walks in just as I was leaving with all of my war gear in hand. We can call him Connor. I knew this guy. In fact, he was one of the first two 40k players I met when I decided to show up with less than 500 points of poorly painted Blood Angels for my first match. Connor was not a common person to show up at the game store. He usually only showed up with an Emperor's Scythes player maybe once or twice a month, never staying around too long. I had never played a game with him, nor what games he may have played with his friend, which is weird considering I was there every Friday and Saturday. As much time as possible going into 2 in the morning, and maybe after work too, if anybody texted me to come in and play. Dude, the store's open till 2 in the morning? Screw that, man. I'll be kicking you out. Listen, I value your hobby time. I really do. Like it's fine, you know. But at the same time, you know, I want to go home. I don't want to be around the hobby, you know, day and night. Connor and I talked lore and were on very friendly terms, talking memes and theories while he would watch me play matches and maybe even offer tactical advice every now and then. Now, I've never liked seasoned players teaching players who may have played over 10 matches before. Telling them that what the enemy forces are capable of is okay, but not how you should move and make attacks. Sure, it's okay if they're brand new, but at this stage, I'd rather have an after-action report of, you know, you could have done this, I guess, or, you know, things of that nature, instead of somebody else driving my army whilst I'm still in the seat. Other than that, I thought he was pretty cool, but every time he would come in, I'd ask him if he wanted to play, and there was always an excuse as to why he couldn't, usually related to his wife or something. The only difference from now and those times is there wasn't any other players in the store, aside from me. I greeted him and was happy to see an uncommon opponent. I said, and I quote, "Ha! I can finally prove that the Blood Angels are better than the Ultramarines," unquote. Feeling a bit full of myself after my brand new Commander Dante model did the finishing blow to a Tyranid Bio-Titan on turn 1 the night before, which 2 other armies tried and failed to do. I said he needed to do everything he could to try and defeat me, and boy, I should have worded that one a bit differently. So we set up for a 2,000 point match and started making our lists. I was going to keep testing the list I used last night, or the night before, because I thought it was pretty strong. So I told him everything I was taking, putting into reserve, and what my army rules are while he constructed his list. It is the first time I see Guilliman in model form in person. I complimented it and asked him what the special abilities that he had that I had to worry about. Now, as of writing this, I have looked at his datasheet for myself and realised I should have packed up my bag and left right there and then. I thought he was cheating and his dice rolls before, but I wish it was just that. He told me Guilliman had a 2+ invulnerable save instead of 3+. His ranged weapon was rapid fire 4 instead of rapid fire 3. He had 10+ melee attacks instead of 6 attacks. He had a 3+ feel no pain, which didn't exist at all. His leadership aura, allowing units to re-roll failed hit rolls and wound rolls, was 9 inches instead of 6 inches. And to top it off, I can only damage him up to 2 damage points per battle phase, which also was not a thing. Guilliman is a very scary model already, but these upgrades, it makes him nearly immortal. Knowing that in lore, Primarchs are the last thing anybody would want to fight, this seemed a bit ridiculous, but also still possible, considering the Ultramarines are the poster boys of the setting and story, and he is the only Loyalist Primarch with a model at the time. Okay, feel free to put some of the pictures I attached on screen right now if you like. Okay, I will. Yeah, I get what you mean. Like, Primarchs are a bit of a grey area, right? Because you never really know, do you? You never really know. Like somebody could be... Primarchs, they're not a license to cheat, but they could be. You know? They really could be. That's a nice dice box you've got there. Get some, either Druchii Violet. No, Druchii Violet, yeah. Put in the, put some Druchii Violet into the crevices here. And you've got a really, really cool looking Blood Angels model that really pops. I think it looks cool as it is. But I think if you do some Druchii Violet, maybe, I don't know. I think that would make it look even better. Make it pop, son. Make it pop. Cool. I like him. Is that a thumbprint I see on his shoulder pad? Is that a thumbprint I see, sir? You need to go over that again. But null oil on the metals, and Druchii Violet in the crevices of the red armor, and you've got amazing looking models there. All right, and maybe do that shoulder pad again. But apart from that, amazing. Love them. Love you called your guy Slade, dude. This is kind of like old school punk 40k. I quite like this. Anyway, moving on. Thinking I know how difficult it is to kill Guilliman, I know I need to target all of his little Ultra Smurfs first. Only then I can put everything I have against him in order to contain and subdue him. My personal goal being to kill the unkillable by the end of the match. We set our armies up and roll initiative. He goes first, however. My forces are mostly covered by obscuring terrain, also being outside of charge range on turn 1. So, Connor advanced all of his troops as far as possible, except for one unit, so that they could shoot at one of my squads, but missed due to my guys being in cover, and Connor's guys being outside of Guilliman's extended reroll range. So, Connor's army didn't even soften up my forces at all. Also, they got as close to them as they possibly could, without being in any cover at all, with any of his units on the board. So, on my turn, my ranged attacks prioritised backline units, whilst my melee units started to rip and tear everything in their path, aside from Guilliman himself. This strategy played out perfectly whilst 2 Redemptor Dreadnoughts, 3 company squads and a Chief Librarian wipe out each unit they get into melee with. Long-range units like Suppressors, Intercessors and Eliminators occupy 3 primary objectives and destroy at long range. At the end of turn 1, his force is so decimated that there is only Guilliman, Tugurius, 1 bodyguard and 3 bolter intercessors remaining on the board to my 0 casualties. Okay, I'm going to say something else here, right? This is why 40k sucks balls. This is why it sucks balls. Yeah? Turn 1! Great, you're dead. Oh. Well, all I did was move forward. Yeah, so, you're dead. Moving on. You know, it's like... oh. Okay. Cool. I'll pack up my models. Right, I know he's cheating. I know that. Right, I know that. I don't have a problem with saying he's a bit of a douche for doing that. You shouldn't be cheating. But at the same time, you've just really exemplified here, Ralderon, why 40k sucks as a game system. It just sucks. Any game where at turn 1 you can spend an hour setting up to be blasted off the table in 30 minutes is bad. Just saying. Just saying. Again, don't balance things. Let people express themselves. But at the end of the day, your game should be robust enough that unless you're really unlucky or you do something stupid like what this guy did, it shouldn't be possible to just annihilate somebody's entire army in one turn. right? You know? There is a difference between being expressive and not having too much balance in a game, and a game being so ridiculous in how it works at its core that you can lose your entire army in one turn and not have any recourse to it whatsoever. With alternating activations, this doesn't happen. You can react to the battlefield as it's unfolding before you. It's brilliant. And both players play the game. 40k needs alternating activations, I'll say it. Without it, it's not a very good game. In my opinion. Anyway, moving on. Connor's next turn, he shot dead my suppressors on an objective in cover that was definitely outside of his 24-inch range. Also having Gilliman annihilated Dreadnought and having Tigurius duel with my Librarian 1 versus 1, failing to kill him and receiving damage in kind. My round 2 leaves Gilliman surrounded by dead men. Commander Dante and a 10-man squad of Sanguinary Guard drop behind my opponent's remaining forces. Dante kills Tigurius in melee, and his guard killed the intercessors in melee too. The bodyguard died to pistol shots from a Death Company squad. Every single model I had in my army trained every attack they had on Gilliman from now until turn 5. Throughout the rest of the match, his turns consisted of falling back and shooting at my rear units that were holding primary objectives and allowing me to be the one to charge him each and every round, which grants significant bonuses to my army, like getting 1 or 2 additional melee attacks per model, depending on the combat doctrine. Okay. Back then, I did the maths on how many attacks were directed at this guy, and it was over 200 ranged attacks, and over 250 melee attacks, 6 psychic attacks, and 3 orbital bombardments in the command phase from my impulses. The amount of damage Gilliman took by the end of the match was 1 point of damage. 1 point. 1 single attack to make it through out of all of that. I looked at his dice rolls only twice. I guess I should have rolled them myself to see if they were loaded. I guess I'm that gullible idiot in this scenario. I was flabbergasted when most of my units could either completely re-roll failed hits, or at least re-roll hits rolls of 1, thanks to Dante, for 2 of those 4 rounds. This was a statistical anomaly at a bare minimum. Not only did he kill every model I had, but he outscored me by 5 points at the end of the day. I was friendly with this guy and talked with him every chance I could, but I'm glad I never saw him again. This guy took me for a complete ride. I noticed in the past he was ignored by the more veteran players of the store, possibly even given a bit of a stink eye by them too. Maybe he had a reputation. Maybe he was soft banned from playing with people who knew what he was like. Connor should feel ashamed. Some would have called him a friend after the amount of time and conversation I'd had with the guy. He was even a fellow active duty service member, but I guess he may never find brotherhood with conduct like that in a silly plastic army game. Cheers, Ralderon. I'm with you, dude. Like I think he was beyond the pale too. But I do think your Hobby Nightmare shows why 40k doesn't really work. For me, at least. Okay? It just doesn't work. For me. Because, you know, you've got a guy there outwardly cheating, and to be fair, like, you know, he is cheating, but the fact that he got away with it shows you just how much you think 40k also kind of stinks. Because you didn't even call out how powerful Gilliman was. You went, yeah, that sounds like 40k, and got on with it. Do you know what I mean? Which should show you a lot, in my opinion. But aside from that too, the fact that you did that to his army at the top of turn 1 also says to me that, you know, this game's a bit poor. Yeah, I'm just saying. Anyway, let's do our next Hobby Nightmare. It is Pete. Hello, Pete. How's it going, dude? And he says, North, I hope this email finds you well. I have been a lurking fan for some time and a recent subscriber. I enjoy your content as it provides plenty of material to listen to as I paint or assemble my models. I've had my own share of hobby nightmares and thought I would share them with you or perhaps get your opinion on the topic. First, a bit of background. Like many folks, I served in the US military, in the army. Well, thank you for your service. You're not my country, but thank you for kicking ass, dude. I was not remarkable, my job was dull. Not to me, I thought. However, the community in my profession, intelligence, is tiny and relatively nerdy. For instance, as I was initially coming into the army, I had the wonderful experience of learning what Pathfinder, D&D and Magic the Gathering were, and somehow everybody in my unit was doing it. Thus, it opened my world to new experiences and new games. Throughout the years, I did many fun army-related tasks, met new friends, and travelled the world, but most importantly, I discovered Warhammer in Korea and was immediately hooked. Sadly, I was always in situations where I couldn't collect paint or play due to my tasks, training, and overall hectic schedule. Not that I did not mind, I enjoyed it, but it was not hobby friendly to say the least. Yet, my love for the lore and hobby grew, even if I watched them longingly from afar. Years later, I had the opportunity to get out, and I thought, this is my chance to dive into the hobby. However, it was not in the cards for me as I continued my career in intelligence, as a civilian, which kept me busy. Money was good, and career progression was better. Further, my wife and I had two of the most beautiful little girls in my world. Overall, life was good. I loved the hobby, lore, books, and models from a distance, though. Well, dude, could you not just downplay your involvement? Right? Because I don't have a lot of time either, but you know what I do? I've done a project that is really small. Like the Emperor's Wolves are a very, very, very small Space Marine chapter. They've got like 2 or 3 squads in them. It's like 500 to 1,000 points. But they were meant to be one squad. And I'm going to do a few others. I've got one called the Steel Wardens coming up. I'm going to go back to the Void Talons and the Astral Blades. And I'm going to make them, as a thing. And only do one squad of each of them. But I can put all of my love and energy when I've got the time and energy to do it, which is limited, into those small projects that I then complete. And it makes me feel really good. Maybe you should do that. Or you should have done that, So those of you listening, if you're in a similar position where you don't have that much time, downscale your hobby. Instead of doing a 40k Space Marine army, maybe really think about the kind of Space Marine army you want to create, as in your own chapter or whatever, and do one squad, just to showcase the idea. You're not overawed, you're not taken over by the hobby, you're not really down because you're not finishing something. Maybe think about it. It's what I do. It works. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yes. Fast forwarding a few years, I'm finally steady in an area where my family and I all feel comfortable, considering that my job in the army before required me to move a lot, either chasing money or a new task. With a fantastic new job, family and great hours, I finally bought my first box, and Pandora's box opened up. I'm a proud collector of a small library of books, all 40k, a massive Black Templar army, knights, orcs and tyranids. I remain incredibly busy with school, with an associate, bachelor and master's complete back-to-back, caring for 2 little girls and working full-time. Considering the above, I'm incredibly proud that I could paint any models at all. However, I could not play because my local stores had odd times. I mean, who plays Warhammer on a random Wednesday afternoon? I do. But anyway. Now we get into my hobby nightmare situation. After years of wanting and even getting over my fears of playing, I finally made my way to the hobby store and made some new friends. I even started a PsyOps campaign in the office. What? PsyOps? Do you mean like in your professional office? Like you're running a PsyOps on the people at the store? Or is that a game? I recruited a small group of co-workers to participate in the hobby. All was good, even with my busy life, school and family. I could play and finally enjoy my painted models. Now, you can imagine that my play sessions were kind of rare. Perhaps once or twice a month, or every 2 months. I have to either take time off work, leave the wife alone for almost a whole day on a weekend with 2 very hyper little girls, or invite somebody over to mind them. Now, we can all guess that inviting somebody over to my house and play is the best for my family and me, and most importantly, I can help here and there with the kids if they start a fire or something. I wanted to be a good host, so I started collecting terrain, I painted it, created an inviting atmosphere, and always provided good food and beer. Dude, where are you in the world? I want you to adopt me. Come and adopt me. You can give away your kids, and I'll move in. How about that? It'd be great. Actually, no. My missus can take care of your kids, right? They'll love Britain, and I'll move in with you and your missus. How's that? That's good. That's fair to me. Anyway, I had a steady group of friends and a good time when I could, and things were great. Sadly, many of my regulars left for bigger and better opportunities. Others were still in the army and had to move around to another location. In other words, life happened. Thus, I was left with no option but to recruit at work. I knew pretty much everybody in the office as I was a team leader and was very friendly to everybody, even if I didn't like you. Yet, I was introduced by some office friends and co-workers to, let's call this person, Steve. Steve immediately gave me bad vibes. Sometimes for an unknown reason, you see a person as an asshat. Dude, Gary Barlow. You won't know who that is. As a yank. Don't Google him. Don't give him the time of day, right? Like my missus was watching a documentary about boy bands the other day, and Gary Barlow was on there, and I just looked at him and I was like, "You've always been a bit of a twat, haven't you?" I've never come across a celebrity who is so up themselves and highfalutin. Oh, I'm so talented. But they're described as a nice guy. There's nothing more frustrating in the world. Really, really nothing more frustrating than your friends liking somebody who you know is an arsehole. There's nothing more. That happened at university once with a guy called Harry. Oh my god, dude. Like I knew he was an arsehole, and everybody liked him. And it turned out later on he was an arsehole, and everybody stopped liking him. And I was like, told you, right? Gary Barlow's that kind of person, right? He just rubs me the wrong way. I'm like, everybody thinks he's a nice guy. I see through that. Gary, if you're listening, I see through that. I know you're a dick. Moving on. His demeanour, attitude, snarky remarks, and superiority complex all but confirmed my fears. But as soon as my co-workers mentioned Steve liked 40k, contrary to my judgment, I decided to try to forget everything my gut told me and pursue this friendship. This is what the hobby does to you, man. It drives you into the arms of knobheads. Things were good. Steve had a World Eaters army, liked the lore, and was open to play. I took the chance and invited Steve over for a game, and immediately I saw some red flags. Steve is the type of player who will put you down for losing, albeit at the time, I just took it as banter and being proud of the army he was sporting. I am the type of person who will still be happy even if I lose a game or if it doesn't go my way. I want to play with my models and experience the game. So, all is good. No worries, win or lose. It's all fun, and at the end of the day, they are just little toy soldiers. Naturally, I learned how to counter Steve's army, and throughout a couple of games, I started to win. With this change, Steve got worse. He began getting mad, annoyed, and almost obsessed with looking up rules. Honestly, anything to stop me from winning or even doing better than him. More recently, I invited Steve to visit my home. Why? If these are all of the... This is what the hobby does to people. They are starved of people to play with, and they let people like Steve into their homes. More recently, I invited Steve to visit my home. I had beer, snacks, and even provided an excellent dinner. I made ribs. Dude, why won't you adopt me? Please. Please, it's cold here. During this game, I noticed that Steve began to get upset as soon as I destroyed a couple of his models. His attitude changed, and his whole demeanour became just a dark cloud. I was determined to not let this ruin my night, especially since it takes a lot of time to find the time. I tried to be cheerful, give him tips, and play with as much intent as humanly possible to let this guy enjoy himself. As the game continued, it got worse, and at some point, he even commented, that he wasn't having fun, alluding that it may have been just me cheating that was stealing his fun away. I took a deep breath and continued to push forward, determined not to ruin my once-a-month chance to play. Then, I made the mistake of having one of my kids roll for me, and the roll was good. Perfect. Naturally, this angered Steve, and before he could open his mouth, I asked my daughter to leave the room. And before I could snap, he packed up his models, cried, literally cried, and angrily stormed out of my house. As he vigorously drove off, I felt so relieved I didn't have to throw him at myself. Yet I felt very disappointed and slightly alarmed. This is literally the only person with whom I can play, but he happens to be an absolute lunatic. He has messaged me multiple times asking for another game as if nothing had happened. I do not want this to babysit this guy and nurture his mental health, but he is the only person I can play with at this point. North, what would you do in this situation? Cheers, Pete. Dude, don't you dare invite this person around to where your daughters live. Right? Right? If I can't play with you and live in your house, neither can he. I'm saying. But I'm being serious though. Don't you dare invite this person around to where your daughters live. Like, you need to just take it on the chin, dude. This guy ain't for you. He ain't for us, baby. He ain't for you. Right? As Rocky says. Or the trainer in Rocky. He's no good for us, baby. Right? Now that's it. Don't do it. Move away. Don't go with it. It's not worth it. No hobby time is better than bad hobby time. Right? There's a really cool channel called Black Lodge Games. If you like role-playing, go and watch them. And they say that it's one of their core principles. No role-playing is better than bad role-playing. There's nothing worse than having your hobby time wasted by some chode. Don't do it. Take it on the chin. Learning experience. But don't let this guy in anymore. Just don't play the game for a bit, dude. Be a man. I know it sucks. And you deserve to play games, man. Right? You're a very responsible person. You've got a lot of things going on. But, dude, just... somebody will come along, right? Somebody will come along that you can play the hobby with. I'm serious. It will happen. Okay? Just hold out there. But don't let people like this infect your time. It's precious. Alright? Alright, that's my advice. Anyway, I love you a long time. I'll be back tomorrow with the second part of What Does Your Warhammer 40k Army Say About You? Where I'll be talking with Amber King too. That'd be pretty cool. So I'll see you then. Have a good one. Bye now.